I think after nearly 16 years, I am genuinely ready to let go of Adobe, and I'm really hoping I can. Here is why. So my journey with Adobe began when I was a high school student, and I remember in our old media room we had this, I don't know, some ancient this editing system where you go record on mini DV or VHS, and you went in and there was no multi-layers. I can't remember what it was called, but there was no multi-layers of video or anything like that. But through year 10, year 11, that's what I was using, and even for some of my last year in year 12. And then I remember my teacher was saying, like, Dean, Mr. Tripp, he's like, Dean, you gotta get just computer software at home. And I think he brought up Adobe Premiere Pro. So I picked that software up. I taught myself to use it, and then Shane and I, for our last media short film at school, was fully edited. Everything was done in Adobe Premiere Pro, and I was sold. I couldn't believe the power of that software, how much better it was than what I'd been learning on, prior to that editing in the media room. When I started making films, I missed film. It was all VHS, and I used to edit them, plugging two VCRs together. That was literally the first 2, 3, 4 years of my filmmaking journey. Was pause, unpause while the other tape was sort of playing it. You're trying to manually stitch it together, and then once you get to the end, you play back the short film that you just edited all in the one day. When I went to uni and I started film and script writing, everything was Mac, and it was all Final Cut. This was pre Final Cut X or whatever the one was, when it all went a bit funny. I've heard it's improved light years since then. Thought it was fine, thought it was good, but I was a real Premiere guy, and I was also, and I still am, a PC guy. I think Macs are great. I just think they're overpriced, really, for the performance. I think they're very well branded. They are very stable though, which is awesome. Other than a couple of projects in first year, I pretty much edited everything at home on Premiere through my whole time at university. But after we graduated, things got more serious, and we fully invested in the Adobe suite, because we're going to be doing more than just editing videos, so that we'd have access to Photoshop and all the other files. I think it might have been 2014, 2015, maybe it was 2013. Might have been 2013. I can't remember the year, but they switched to the Adobe CC subscription model. But at the time, the deal felt pretty good compared to, because we were always updating sort of our version every time a new version came out. Anyway, we probably didn't need to, but we did. And we worked out that at least at the initial subscription cost, because we were fully updating, I think, every couple of years anyway, it was going to work out cheaper. And at the time, it was about $50 Australian. And so, we were okay with that. That's now $76 a month. But as time's gone on, things haven't been hunky-dory for me. No one says hunky-dory anymore, but I just did in a video, and this video is on YouTube because you're watching it right now. And that means I actually allowed myself saying hunky-dory to be said to you from the past in your present right now on YouTube. Amazing. Time travel. Anyway, what I've found that over the years, when it comes down to it, Adobe, particularly Premiere Pro, is unacceptably unstable and is driving me nuts. And for the last few years, a couple of years ago, I really wasn't sure what the alternative was, because I didn't want to switch to Mac, and I like Premiere. I like Adobe. I like the software when it works, when it's reliable, when it's functioning. But it's got to a point, probably in the last 18 to 24 months, where I'm just tearing my hair out all the time. So I get multiple crashes a day. I have to automatically set Premiere to autosave every 5 minutes so I don't lose too much stuff. It crashes when I try to export stuff sometimes. Sometimes when I'm exporting from the render queue, certain Lumetri effects are not applied and I have to re-export. And the only way I'm able to make that work is to not export via the render queue when I have a bunch of executable files, say a project, and there's 2 different 15-second executions, a 30-second execution, and a longer video or whatever, I can't put them all in a queue. I have to do one at a time and just export them directly without bringing them into the render queue, because it's the only way I can be sure that all the effects that I've applied, whether they're third-party plugins or just Lumetri effects themselves, are applied. There was a period there where I think it was Film Convert, which is software that I really like and I use a lot. I think that's fixed now, but there was a period there when if I exported via Adobe Media Encoder render queue, it wouldn't apply. Anyway, it was a real pain in the ass, and one job actually went out with 2 shots on it that were not really graded. So yeah, there's that. There's the multiple crashing. A new one that's just popped up in the last week. So I'm mostly like I shoot on a lot of different formats, but predominantly red. Scarlett W's shooting this right now. What I've noticed now is when I go into the red metadata, because I shoot a lot of documentary stuff, and I'm a bit lazy with my white balance sometimes because I know I can just change it later. And I had a scene where I had a good white reference, and I just went in to click on it to sort of auto color balance to it, and it's just crashing. It wasn't doing that 2 weeks ago. I must have had it on an auto update, or I'd updated it and didn't, it's like a gamble every time you do an update, because it fixes some error and then it introduces 2 other ones. So yeah, now I can't auto white balance at the moment in the current build. Yeah, just crashes a lot when I go to export, crashes all the time when I'm using it, and it's just generally slow and cumbersome. But up until recently, I didn't really know as a PC guy what my alternative was. And I remember it might have been 3 years ago that Resolve became an editor as well. And I remember sort of having a peek at it, but thinking, yeah, cool. It's not there yet. And my frustration previously with Adobe was Photoshop's amazing. After Effects is great. Premiere is good, other than a real lack of color space control. And especially after they kind of abandoned speed grade and didn't keep developing that, I was using that for a while. I felt like, I thought, why aren't you trying to compete in the color grading space and really do something special here? Give us more control, And I have no idea if this is true, but my thinking is they just decided, you know what, we're just not going to try to compete with Resolve. Lumetri or Premiere is going to be fine for a lot of everyday users or a lot of applications, particularly if it's just very standard broadcast Rec 709. It's going to be fine for a lot of quick stuff in that space. Let's not waste our resources trying to compete with such a well-established and very good software in Davinci Resolve. I wonder if they'd anticipated that Resolve was also going to become an editor. And after years of tinkering around with Davinci, just the light version, just for grading, although a lot of our work, we don't have, to be honest, a heap of budget purely in the sort of grading space at the end. It's like it is included in our post-production, but for us, Premiere's kind of, I guess, done the job, even though we know there's a better option out there. But recently, we actually, both myself and Shane, who we both own and run Hallucinor, both invested in copies of Davinci Resolve. I think it was 400 and something Australian, no subscription fees, works offline, and just amazing. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, there's some getting used to and everything, but this software, look, I've only had it a couple of months, but as an editor, yeah, this is there. This is not where it's really come along since it first came out as an editor. And within that price, you think you've got, what is it? Fusion for motion graphics and effects. I haven't barely touched that. Haven't used it yet. You've got Fairlight for audio. Obviously, you've got the grading and you've got the editing all in one at that price. Even if we were holding on to Adobe, That is such value right there. And I really want to reward companies and use the software or the hardware, whatever it is, from companies that are making these what I see as pro-consumer business practices. Our subscription doesn't end until October. So we're keeping that. I've got projects including our short film Evenfall and a bunch of branded kind of documentaries with businesses that are, some of them are sort of longer term. They'll wrap this year, but I don't know how close to that, and they're in Premiere. We've also got a lot of legacy projects, one that literally from last year, I had someone from the company on the East Coast just wanting to get a copy to pull some footage from it for something else that they're doing over there. No problem, went back in, took all the supers, all the text out, I've exported that and given it to them. So obviously having Premiere enables me to do that. But there are other options, renting, for example. The one that I'm really not sure that we can do without, and sorry, I feel like I've jumped ahead here. What we're trying to ascertain is, can we completely eliminate Adobe from our lives? Or is that not smart? Can we do without Photoshop? Are there good alternatives? And I know there are, but I know there supposedly are, but I haven't looked at them yet. That's Photoshop and Lightroom. After Effects is the big one. So we're a pretty small production company. There's, two of us full time, and we work with a lot of freelancers. We work for agencies, we work for big companies and small companies, non-for-profits and multinationals around Australia and in Asia. And what happens often with, particularly with the big companies, they might have some preset graphics, and sometimes we're given them as alpha layered, ProRes files, which is awesome. But sometimes we'll just get given an After Effects template, and then we've got to, say it's for a particular video. So we've just got to go in, change some of the videos, or put some videos in place that are actually ours on some of the layers, and change some of the text, and then integrate that into the video. And so in those instances, we need to have After Effects, or we can't do our job. But does that mean I need a yearly subscription? So to pay for After Effects on its own, it's about $30 a month if you're locking yourself in for the full year, or it's around $45, $46 a month if you want to just pay for a month at a time. So one option for us is I hope we can do is just, all right, do we need After Effects for a project? How long is that post-production time? Is it worth us just renting that for a month and charging the client for that work? Photoshop, I think, there is some really good kind of solid alternatives. I think the subscription plan for that's around $15 a month, which is, that's much more reasonable. But with the options that are out there that we're going to be exploring over the following few months, I'm hoping we don't need it. The one that I think is really tricky for us is After Effects. Can we, I don't think we can totally do without it. It's just, what form will that take? Can we just rent it for a month when we need it? Or do we cough up the $360 a year to just rent After Effects yearly? It'll be interesting to see. I'm gonna, through the magic of editing, see if there's any key points that I've missed and have a look at my piece of paper. But you're not gonna see me look at my piece of paper. You're just gonna see this. No, I think that's more or less all I had to say. If you stayed to the end of this video, holy crap, that was a rant. Probably not my best first video to do, but it's just something that we're really grappling with right now. And what I'm struggling with is, I had some fast kind of turnaround projects, and because I'm so much more familiar with Premiere, I've just jumped into that, even though I really don't want to, because I didn't want to let the client down in some way where it was just due to my lack of familiarity with Davinci Resolve as an editor. So what the plan is right now, in the time leading up to October, do we have a viable alternative to Photoshop? I think Davinci Resolve is definitely a viable alternative to Premiere. It's just figuring out how we navigate the After Effects side of things. To filmmakers, video producers out there, what software are you using? Are you using Adobe? Are you having issues with it? Are you seeing their pricing as getting a bit, I know there's bigger expenses out there, insurance, our cameras, all of that's way more expensive. But as, a small business owner, I just feel like, if I can make a saving and have a better product, I don't care if that saving is $50 or $500 or $1,000 a year. I'm going to take it. So, yeah, but tell me, are you using Adobe? Do you still love Adobe? Are you, have you switched? Are you using Resolve? What do you think of that? Are you on Final Cut? Is there anyone out there who's really getting into Fusion after having maybe more experience in After Effects? Would love to hear any thoughts on this subject. Until next time, see you later.